What's up, everybody, and welcome back. And if you see who's joining me today, I was going to introduce him normally as, formerly Frank Sweeney, now Frank Fox. But I think in this particular instance, both of those might be past tense because allegedly his moniker these days is they.
Yeah.
Frank, what's going on? Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat. I think there's so much that when that happened this season, so I'm down to break it down.
Well, I just got to give myself a little pat on the back because I don't know if you remember this. 5 years ago, very early on into my interviewing, ventures, we did an interview, and I just gotta say that this moment was vindication because when I did the intro to our first conversation, first off, I mean, for anybody who remembers and goes back and watch, I was like doing that while I was on vacation. I had like janky Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I remember when I went to do my intro for you, I didn't even know what to say. I froze up. I was just like, Frank. And then there was like this pause, and then I didn't say anything. I was like, thanks for being here. So, vindication. But yeah, thanks for being here. So, how is, first off, how's the last few weeks been for you? Because we obviously know a lot's transpired with the episodes and stepping back into the online sphere after so
Yeah.
many years away. How has that been navigating? Has it been less strenuous mentally than you expected stepping back into the public eye, or has it kind of been somewhere in between?
That's a really thoughtful, great question, honestly. So I don't know. Like, first of all, if you know anything about me, regardless of the show or not, like I'm going to be totally transparent and honest. So you'll get my full answer here, long winded or not. I think for me, I didn't even have my social media up and running for many years because I just like didn't really need it. I've got a whole lot of stuff going on in my real life, and social media just wasn't really a part of that. Knowing that I was coming back onto the show around last year, I kicked it back up because I knew that it was part of the show, promoting the show, being, active on that. I think that's, it's important to producing and promoting a TV show. And so I'm kind of of two minds. I think part of it has been very fun. So I would say like half of it has been very fun. It's fun to promote the show. It's fun to do lives. It's fun to chat with other cast members. It's fun to like kick it back and forth and maybe like take a couple shots here and there. Like that's all silly and like unserious to me. I know some folks in the online community take it very seriously, but that's fun. The other piece to it is that it can be quite dark and really taxing. And I think at the very onset of the season, some of the Drag Race girls were talking about the challenge, talking about me and talking about the challenge. And I think it was Candy Muse who said, the challenge fandom is toxic, like toxic. And I was like, no way, get out of here. It can't be like, I love the challenge and I love fans and I love the fact that we are like, that we have discourse about the show. Like, that's what makes it for me. But I will say, sometimes folks really cross a line, and it's a crazy thing. Like I fully get that you people have their favorites, and you are going to interpret the show via the lens of whoever your favorite is, right? So like, there are folks who ride for I don't know. Let me think of somebody non-controversial. Folks who ride for Katie, right? Like Katie folks aren't coming for me, but folks who might ride for Katie, they're going to interpret the show through the lens of like how they see Katie on the show and like what she does. Then there are folks who ride for Devon. They're going to see the show through Devon's lens, right? Or like through the way they want to interpret Devon's actions. So like that is an interesting piece to all of this because like the show could be one thing and we could be showing you something, but because folks have stake in the game with one of their favorite characters, or I mean, characters more or less. I mean, we are on television. I think they interpret things through a lens that is maybe biased. And I've been on the show in 10 years, and I think 10 years ago, people who were watched me for a certain thing, which was virulent and nasty. And maybe I'm not giving that as much this season. I think I have maybe different folks who are rooting for me now, and it's just not the same lens, right? So It is a weird, there is a weird balance to be struck between having fun with social media and then also like letting it tear you down a little bit. I wasn't necessarily ready for the tear you down part, but I'm really fortunate because I have an amazing husband. I got an incredible family. I got amazing friends. I got a whole ass. I'm working my butt off right now for a couple different things. I got some really fun stuff in the works, and then also my daytime job. So like, I got enough going on that like after Wednesday night and I log off, it's done. But
Hmm.
there's an hour there on Wednesday night right before bed where I'm like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get to sleep tonight, you know? But it's only an hour. It's a fleeting thing, and then
Yeah.
it's done.
Listen, there's an interval there, an hour,
Yeah,
60 minutes you
exactly
got.
right. Exactly right.
Yeah, there is a parasocial element that exists when doing these shows. You know, like it almost comes with the territory. Like once, and I've talked about this at great length with other cast members. It's like it's already mentally taxing enough to live in the environment where you're pretty much secluded from outside world and there's cameras on you 24/7. But then there's the whole added element of like 5 months from now, this is going to be on TV, and every single week of your life, there's going to be somebody who's like John with like 16 numbers on Twitter is going to
Yeah.
be telling you like what they think about you when they weren't even there. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's a weird thing to relive because like when the show wraps or when you leave the show, which whatever happens first, you're done, right? Like the adrenaline leaves your body. It's just like it's over, and it's a really interesting thing to then have to relive it. And I think when I first did the show in 2011, there was Twitter, there was Instagram, but it wasn't used in the same way. And I think also Twitter specifically has taken sort of, oh, Frank's getting political, taken sort of a dark route.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just like it's a different audience, it's a different type of person who's, you know, at the keyboard there. And so it can be tough. And I think it's hard to watch things back, want to promote, relive them, think through your emotions in the moment, think through how you want to respond to them now, also respond to what folks are saying online. There's a really cerebral balance there that maybe some folks get in the cast, maybe some folks don't get, but like, you know, if I'm showing up like I would to anything having to do with my career, I'm gonna fully show up. So like I'm gonna promote the show. Like you're not gonna get me off of Twitter. I'm not gonna stop yapping on Instagram. I'm gonna talk because it's something that I did. I'm proud of the show. I want to engage with fans. I want to make the show fun and I'm going to engage. Right.
Hmm.
But then, you know, the minute I'm not on that show, which, you know, no spoilers, but the minute I'm not on that show, she's
Yeah,
done.
it's going ghost.
She's going ghost.
Well, we know we just alluded to you with the absence. So I guess the question now on many people's minds would be like, why now? Like, what was it about right now that finally, after all this time, made you come back? And this is also kind of like a two in one. When making that decision, we just talked about like sort of the mental aspect of what was to come from being on the show. When making that decision to come back, were there any like either hurdles or processes you needed to kind of go through in terms to come to terms with, okay, I think I'm ready to come back?
Totally. I think it was just about like alignment with everything I had going on in my life. So when I took time off, so I'll be totally honest. So rivals into free agents, rivals, I got fucking slapped in the face on live TV, right? Like that was not fun. And it's just like an embarrassing moment for everybody involved. It's not something you want to see on TV, on live TV. I was pissed after that happened because I went into that knowing that that night was going to be violent, and I was like, I felt very set up because I was like,
Mhm.
we knew he had told everyone he was going to hit me, like I knew it was coming, and I was like, okay, so we don't sit next to each other, we don't allow for it to happen, and I wanted like folks in, you know, the powers that be to have my back there, and when they didn't, it just felt a little icky to me, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this show again. Then I go on free agents because I was 23 years old. I didn't want to turn down the money. I was getting ready to go back to school for graduate school, which is insanely expensive. And I was like, okay, maybe this will help me get through that. But still with that icky feeling, right, in my gut. And then on free agents, I got pneumonia, and then they made me go home. So then I'm like, okay, it's like fool me once, fool me twice. I need to take a break, right? And then it just naturally evolve, like things just naturally evolve into a real life rhythm, right? So like then I'm building up my career, then I'm building up my relationship, then I'm just like living my life, and the challenge is just not part of it. Taking all the pieces that we just talked about with like social media, that parasocial element of folks chiming in on your life, just like waned out and wasn't part of it. And I was like, oh well, now I get a chance to be me and like see what this looks like without like all of these other influences and without this like very specific weird science project of a life, right?
Hmm.
And it felt great. And so I just continued on that path. Um, for those of we just got some interesting clapbacks on Twitter yesterday. Shout out Amanda. For those of you who think that quantifying number of challenges and the number of years is a good thing, I turned all of those down. I was working on my life. I was doing me. But then this one came, and I got the call for this one. Mark called me, and Mark is an incredible salesman, and he was like, "All Stars is different. We really want you on All Stars. I think you're gonna really love it. It's a totally different structure. It's only 5 weeks. Also, the flagship is so long. Like I have an actual career. I can't leave for that amount of time to do the flagship. And he sold me on it. And at that point last year, like spring of last year, before we left, I was like, okay, well, I've got a house, check. Got a husband, check. Got my pups in line, check. Got my career signing off saying that I can take the time off, check. Know who my person is. I'm a more well-oiled machine than I used to be. Like I just like all of the factors came together, and I was like, so why not? Like, this is not a lifetime career for me, and that's not dogging folks who do it. I would, if I had the checks coming in that they have just to show up, I would also just show up. Like some of the folks who've been on like 20 seasons, but this isn't my life. This is an extracurricular activity that I want to have fun with, and I felt that going into this one, I was like, I can make it fun.
Yeah, and I love like that mentality that you have about the making it fun thing. But before I get to that, I wanted to follow up a few of your points that you just talked about before we pass. So when Mark called you, had you been getting up to that point like prior like All Star calls, or were you called for like even season 40 was a big one too, like right before that, where they were kind of seemingly calling, trying to get everybody they could. Had you been receiving calls like pretty regularly over the years up to this point?
Yeah, I don't think I got like an All Stars one call because I think that was like
That
old
was more
school,
like
old
old
school.
school
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
like, yes. I think, you know, oh, whatever. I'll toot my own horn. I only did 3 seasons before I came in on this. One of them I got cut off 2 episodes in because I was sick, and I think the impact that I left was like quite large.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I've been getting the calls. It's just like it's been a timing thing. It's been a right time in life thing, and this one just happened to work out.
Hmm. And the Rivals 2 thing too, I did want to point out as well because, well, first off, obviously live reunions aren't exactly the greatest
I think
idea.
they're done after that one. Yeah,
That was a one and done for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like, did you feel in that moment? Trying to use the right word. Did you feel like almost like I don't want to say set up, but kind of like put on like like an island of sorts, like where you
I mean,
kind of felt like
literally moved couches from the main set of the Rivals 2 thing to a couch next to Night.
yeah, like
Physically put on an island.
did you feel like they or whoever was like almost wanting that moment to occur, like because in theory you would think like you would want to like kind of make sure physical violence doesn't occur, especially at a live reunion, right? Like it's not like
Yeah,
you edit something out. Um,
I'll be honest. I think, you know, man, it's hard because Knight really struggled with addiction, and it was a really hard thing to watch. And I think what the context that's kind of left off of the table here is that, like, for 2, 3 years, we were actually like very much friends,
mhm.
and left it as such. After that whole thing happened, I texted him like 3 weeks later, and I was just like, "I love you. I'm really sorry you're going through this," because it was so evident that he was struggling, and that's where things left off. And I like it didn't we didn't leave off on him slapping me and me being like, oh, I hate night. It left off on like, I'm here for you should you need help. Love you. Next time I see you, let's dig in, right? Let's talk about what's going on. I don't know that I'm certainly not gonna blame production for like setting it up per se, but I felt like they didn't take seriously or put stock in the fact that he was saying that. I mean, he was truly fucked up, like on alcohol, maybe something else. I don't know. At that reunion, and I think they didn't take stock in his words that he was going to, like he was saying on mic, like I'm gonna fuck this guy up, I'm gonna hit him, I'm gonna hit him. So like maybe they just thought he was like fluffing it up, and like just didn't put stock into it. So I don't know that anyone is to blame per se, but it didn't feel good to be in that situation when I'm like, hey, I think he's, this is serious. Like, maybe like advocate for me a little bit here. It was just a bad situation, and my heart to this day still goes out to Knight and his friends and his family, because that's an incredibly hard thing to overcome and deal with. And I hate to see the like sort of tragedy that ensued there, because it's tough and it's so pervasive across our society, and there's just like so few resources dedicated to helping folks with addictive behaviors, and it's bad.
Like 2013, them is like a lot different than, let's say, like 2025. Like somebody saying like that they're gonna hit somebody or do something, they might have chalked that up as to, oh, this is just another moment happening on TV. Like let's like watch this play out, as opposed to like, oh, this is really something that should probably receive some like tender love and care here, because this is like a real issue. So
Look,
like if
it's a totally different time. Like I can't. When I started, when I started dating my husband, he was like, "You're on the Real World." I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Should we watch an episode?" And I was like, "I don't know." It's a total time capsule, right? Like the vernacular that we use, the way we spoke to each other, the way we fought, that was 2010, 2011. That was like the aughts reality television. It was different. It was Tila Tequila. It was like Rock and Love. It was like, it was just a different time. And I think there's been a natural evolution in the way that we've learned as a society, not reality TV, but as a society, to speak to each other and engage with one another. And that's just changed. And I think that I'm grateful that the producers of the show have like maintained integrity in keeping up with that, because we don't need that kind of nastiness anymore. Like it's just like it doesn't serve anybody. And I think something that like, I would love if folks ever had any real evidence as to like me being like legitimately nasty or personal. You're not gonna find it. But like I'm proud of myself for this season. I never dug into, like, there was never anything personal on the table. There were not personal attacks. And really, for most of the cast, I would say that's the case. There was obviously some one-off fights that were kind of nasty, but like, really, it's been about a gameplay and how to advance in the game. There's enough fodder there about the game itself and a competition to be able to engage in some like rough and tumble, conflict without being personal and being nasty. So I think it was a different time back then. That's how reality TV was. That's how we engaged. I mean, like, I don't call women bitch, but that was part of the vernacular. Like we just said crazy stuff, and that was totally above board. That was like just how we spoke to one another. And like now if I hear that, I'm like, "Oh my god." What? But it's just a different time. So it's a time capsule.
I find that fascinating when you mentioned about your husband asking about watching the episodes, because it comes up too with cast members I speak to, when especially those that came off the original seasons of Real World, like back in like the 2000s and the 90s. One of my like favorite questions to ask them is kind of like, when coming off the show, did like their time on the show like either positively or like negatively affect the way they either maybe meet people dating wise, or like even career wise for that matter? Because sometimes reality TV might have a stigma in certain avenues. For you personally, prior to obviously like settling down with, you're meeting your husband and like career and everything, initially, did you like how did you navigate that? Did you run into any potential like barriers as far as like meeting with people?
No, not really. I mean, like, I was also living in LA. I'm in Austin, Texas now, but I was in LA for 10 years, and LA is a kooky town where everyone has some sort of touch point with entertainment. I don't think anybody
Mm,
thought anything of it. And
yeah.
that could just be environment, but no, no real barriers there. I think for me, like, in when we did eventually watch an episode and he was like, who is that person? um I think for me it was a reminder of like, okay, that was a piece of, it's a small piece, right? It's a cut down, watered down version of who you are, but that's a small piece of the person that existed when I was a kid. And it was a nice reminder of like what I don't want to be and like what I've grown out of. And so yeah, I mean, I'm great. I am incredibly grateful for every opportunity that this has afforded me. It hasn't offered yet, knock on wood, any obstacles really in my life. And so I'm grateful for the show. I'm grateful for production. I'm grateful for other cast members. I think it's played a major part in the evolution of who I am. And so like I'm very thankful for the real world and the challenge for that.
Hmm. Before we get into the meat potatoes, I have to make mention. Did you happen to see like the memes on Twitter on the one episode when you were talking? Like, it might have been the first episode when you were talking about you and your husband, and I forget who, but somebody put out a tweet and they were like, "Oh, Turbo and Frank, quite the."
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah. Let me tell you, they do not look alike in real life, but that was an insane, it was really good. It
That
was really
one
good.
picture, if you had to do a
That
double
and
take,
then he got
yeah,
compared to the dad from Inside Out, which that one I'll give him because like everybody knows that dad is like kind of sexy for a cartoon, so we'll give it to him. But yeah, no, it's great. And I was that moment when like they showed the call on the show was so great and so special. And he's the best. He supported me. He's been a soldier after as well with like any of the social media stuff. Like he's so supportive, and it's just been can't I just I'm just so grateful.
yeah, that's great. You got the support system. Um, But like I said before, when you pointed out about coming onto the show to have fun, you've got a life outside of this. Whereas maybe in others cases, like the term "oh, this is gonna impact future seasons" comes up, and that's one
Yeah.
term that a lot of fans are very like critical of because in like recent years, it's almost become a thing where it feels like because people are gonna be like repeating seasons, like they're almost afraid to have either dialogue with one another or like make bold like power moves. Whereas seeing with you, you pretty much came in seizing this game by the balls from day one, much like you did your first go around, trying to make big power moves to try to attempt to get stronger teams out of the game to help you out. So yeah, your approach, you come in, I don't want to say subconscious, but like you give an effort to where you also know that it's not just a game or a competition show. It's also a reality show
It's a
at the
TV
end of it.
show. It's
It's
a
a
TV
TV show.
show. Like
Yeah.
we like, and the show has evolved since I've been on to be more aware of the fact that it is a TV show, and for that I'm so grateful because I'm like, sure, you want to set up a scene, let's set up a scene. Like you want me to give you a little something, I'll give you a little sauce. Like I'm happy to do that. Give me a daytime Emmy because I could do it. Look, I think a couple things here. I am really proud of the game that I played because I going in, and this is no dogging on Sammy Joe. I absolutely love her. She is the kindest person who was in that house,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. But when I found out she was my partner and it was solidified, I had sort of a fatalistic resignation, right? I was like, okay, well, like we're going to have too many obstacles physically to be able to compete. And the
Mm-hmm.
first four challenges, we really saw that. Like the first four out of the gate, like number one, she went home in an ambulance. Number two, we couldn't hold each other on the building, which is like a whole thing that whatever. Number three was running through a field. Number four was pushing her, like I had to physically push her. And it's just like, look, this has nothing to do with her weight, nothing to do with her body. It just has to do with the fact that she didn't train, she didn't put in time or the effort ahead of time. And that's fine. She didn't come to the show to do that. She didn't come to the show to like be a competitive beast. Everyone has their own sort of intentions for doing the show, and that just wasn't hers. And because of that, we were just on different pages, right? So
Mhm.
like I was like, okay, I wanted to, and I put in a ton of work. I mean, I don't think I ever had abs like that before in my life, and I don't think I ever will again. But I put in a ton of work ahead of the show to like make sure I could come in and just like fucking go. And it just wasn't what was stacked up for me with the way that the game laid out. So would I have had such a like would this have been my political angle, you know, to take out big teams, to really like go for it, to play bold, let play as boldly and as loudly as I am in this game? It probably wouldn't have been if I were like there by myself, right? I'd have to adapt my strategy. But given the cards that I had, I was like, okay, well, fuck it, right? Like, truly, fuck it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, what's gonna hold me back? What am I gonna go into elimination and go home? Who cares? Like, I'm gonna make sure that I am making the best TV that I can and making the best decisions to prolong my position in the game as I can. So my strategy was, yes, to take out any competition that could get in front of us in the final, which was, spoiler alert, almost anybody there. So it was like, just
Yeah.
take out anybody, right? But it was also to like make it fucking fun, right? Like and have and make for some TV. Now, throwing out Adam and Steve's name at the first uh the very at the very top of the game. Did I think they were going to go in 4 times in a row? No, I did not. I didn't know that that's like
Yeah.
how the challenge was going to play this out, but like, you know, that was a little boring. But then after that, it starts to spice up, right? And I think it's been really fun since we've seen things sort of switch up. And I think the catalyst for that switch was getting rid of Devin and Leroy, was getting the two male teams against each other, and that really changed the game for everybody in the house.
Yeah, that's a good segue, I think, because I think that was on the minds of a lot of people too once they saw the cast list and like who was paired up with who. Obviously, you know, we see these pairs and it's predominantly either female female or male female, and then you just got like two male teams, which, you know, typically
Two
you'll find that that's
strong male
yeah,
teams. Yeah.
it's mostly a competitive imbalance at the end of the day, like just flat out. But my one saving grace was, okay, if you're gonna at least give us male teams, they've got to be male teams with like really something to sink our teeth into in terms of like the rivalry there, the beef. Like if you gave us like I'm just throwing out a loose example, like if we had like a CT and Adam who he tried to fight back in the day, like that type of like relationship, I'd be like, okay, it's gonna make for good TV. I'll let it slide. Which is why a lot of people were hoping coming into this that we would get you and Dustin actually paired up.
That would have been unfair because we would have just won.
Really, you think
Like
so?
flat out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, but that's the point I'm trying to make. Is like if we're at least gonna get like a male team, at least like from a backstory perspective,
Yeah. I hear
like
that. I'll be
like
honest. And I know Fessy has said this before, so I'm not like spoiling anything that's not already on the internet. But like, like I said, those first 4 games were very physical, and so we were watching the same teams do well. And a producer got on the bus and was like, "Hey, this isn't just going to be about who's the most physical team that's going to win this game." So just like because everyone was honestly, everybody was bitching. We were all feeling it. We're all just like, "This is nuts!" Like, there's nothing we can. There's no way to like for us, Katie and Veronica, Sam and Frank, Mel and Nicole, Kellyanne and Sylvia, Ashley and
Ashley and
Anissa. There's no way
Anissa.
for us to do anything here. And it was really starting to build up. And I think production was also just like, yes, it will. Like, I think they had to get on and like just say, like, things are going to maybe change. So it was hard. I think like they just sort of front loaded some very physical challenges, or at least physical for the folks who were there. And it was kind of grating to be in that environment. But I think as you're seeing the season go on, things have progressed and gotten a lot more fair, if you will, or there's been more equalizers and it's been a little bit more anybody's game. And that's what makes the challenge fun because it, I don't want to participate in like a total luck game. Like Deal or No Deal Island scares me a little bit. But I also want things to be kind of wonky and like not know who's going to win. That's what makes it
Yeah.
fun as a viewer, and that's what makes it fun to participate in.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too when they saw like the Devin and Leroy pairing, for example, like who, let's face, they weren't really
No,
like rivals. Like it
no.
was kind of like, oh boy, I can see
Yeah.
where this is going. But luckily, it kind of ended up tapering out a little bit. I kind of wanted to ask you, since we obviously know your hand is dipped into many different cookie jars this season with like the social aspect of things. How early did that process begin? Because I know back in the day, like people would receive the calls, and then they subsequently will start calling guests, and then people will make alliances off the show. You meet up at the airport, kumbaya. I'm curious for someone like you who hasn't been on the show for a while and is now meeting a lot of different people from just either you haven't done a show with or they're just from different walks of life. Like there's people from other countries now who you're just meeting for the
Yeah.
first time. Like how early into that process, when you're going on the show, did these phone calls or just conversations start to take place?
Yeah, great. When I was deciding to go, what was important to me was like, I just hope I have some friends there. Like I like just like from a not from an alliance standpoint at all, but just from like this is an incredibly taxing thing to do. It's like super
Yeah.
hard on your mental health and like I just hope I have some friends there that I can key with, that I can laugh with, that we can actually like have fun with. And so Ashley called me initially and was like, "Oh, they're calling for All Stars 5." And like I had talked to Mark, I knew I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Oh, thank God she's gonna be there." Like I have a
Yeah.
friend there. And then Nani called me, and I was like, "Okay, I got Nani." And this was an alliance talk. Ashley and I, obviously, like it was. We didn't even have to say anything. I was never like, people don't realize like Ashley moved to LA in like 2012, and she lived on my couch. I had a one bedroom apartment. I set up the couch as a bedroom. She moved in racks of clothing. I like let her live with me for like almost 4 months. Then I helped her move into her first apartment. I took her furniture shopping. I got her all her stuff. Like we have a legitimate life history together. And so like that was untouchable for me and will always be. And then you add on top of the fact that she's got this amazing, beautiful, precocious, silly daughter who is just like a testament to Ashley as a mother. Snow is amazing, and I was like, the only thing I want to see Ashley do is succeed. So like that
Mhm.
was we didn't even have to touch that. Nani and I, though it's not been on the show at all, which is such a bummer because we have such a crazy history together, are fantastic. I have so much respect for the person that Nani has become. I love the way she plays the game. I don't think we're seeing a lot of it, but like her and I were always at odds as far as alliances go. But there was a level of respect between the two of us that was like so clear and such a strong through line that like I could be like, "Hey Nani, fuck you, I want you to go in." And she'd be like, "Hey Frank, fuck you, I want you to go in." And then it's just like we go and laugh. It was about the game. It wasn't personal at all. And we had so much fun together. And she's such a silly, fun person. Like
Mhm.
I just like loved having her there. And then another person who I'm actually friends with in real life is Anissa. And so Anissa, I also talked to, and I knew that she was going, and I was like, "This is great. I've got 3 girls there. I love these girls. Like I'll have people that I can just feel like myself with, right?"
Mhm.
Beyond that, the only other person that I spoke to, I guess I spoke to Veronica a little bit because we had met in LA before, and she texted me, and she was just like, "Oh, this will be fun." And I was like, "This will be fun," and that was it. Nothing for real. Um,
What
the
about?
only other real thing that happened pre-show was that Corey reached out to me, and I had
Mhm.
never met Corey. And he just called me one day. I was like, "Oh, here's my number. Call me if you want to text me." And he did. And we talked for like an hour and a half on the phone. And I was like, "Oh, this guy is legit. He is." I think folks have a really skewed opinion of him online. I think he takes a lot of heat, like a lot of unfair heat. I get it. He's a clapback queen. He's always got something to say. He's a little queenie. I think there's a little bit of latent homophobia there. But I look, I he is wonderful. He is sensitive. He is sweet. He is smart. He's intuitive. We just like hit it off right off the bat with on this like call, and we chatted for like 90 minutes, and I've never met this guy, right? Just like talk, not even talking about the challenge, but just about real life stuff. And I made a decision there. I was like, "Hey, I haven't had the opportunity in the past to like work with other gay men, other queer cast members as closely as this." And I'm not, Corey is never going to be on my radar. I really want to I want to see him succeed as well. So it's not really even about like playing the game together. It's like, who do you want to see succeed? Like, who would you actually like to see win the money? Who do you want to like see do
Mhm.
well? And then Corey was one of those people. He brought in Shane. Which was a whole thing. And Marie Rhoda is someone that Shane and I share in common. And she was like, "Oh, you guys are either going to love each other or hate each other." Well, the second was correct. Um, Shane was like, "Let's do an all gay alliance. Let's get all three gays to the end." Blah blah blah. And so I just like was like, "Yep, you got it." But that dissolved immediately at his hands. But that's okay. Look, I'm not mad about any of the game stuff as it pertains to Shane. It's more of the personal stuff for him. I've sort of tiptoed around it on social media. I spoke about it a little bit on my live with Ashley last night, but she didn't post it because she can't figure out how to do it because we're old millennials. I think it was really down to the personal stuff for him. I don't really care if you say you're making an alliance with me ahead of time and then you screw me over. It's a game. Like, we didn't know the rules going into it. But it was disappointing to see it so quickly dissolve, because it's nice to uplift, at least in my opinion, it's nice to uplift other folks who are maybe, queer or of color or like marginalized in any way. It's nice to like lift up those voices a little bit. And so it's hard to watch our own sort of community eat at each other, but that's maybe a
Well,
little too political. I don't know.
well, no, I mean, yeah, when the show, even like a decade ago when you were on, maybe you were probably, I would say, maybe one of the first few that broke the mold a little bit. As far as like, typically we were finding that like a lot of the gay men were just getting thrown into the very first few eliminations, just like
100%.
just because like,
100%.
oh, okay, they're perceived as weaker just because they're gay. Like even in daily challenges, they may do great, but then they're just like, oh no, we gotta put them in anyway. um I do want
So,
to kind of. Oh no, go
oh,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I'll give Tyler Duckworth his props too. He also
Yeah,
really
he's a
he
beast
did
too.
he did really well with Johnny on Rivals. But it is disappointing. And after I left the show, until Corey went to a final, there hadn't been another gay man in the final. How many seasons was that? I don't even know. Like tens of seasons, and
Yeah,
that's
because
crazy. So it's just like, everyone. I am so proud of what the challenge represents because the cast is so incredibly diverse, and that doesn't even just mean like where we sit, like from a like sexuality or gender perspective or a race or ethnicity perspective, but from a thought diversity perspective as well. Like, the cast is so diverse. I think production does an amazing job of casting people from all walks of life, and it's just like nice to see folks represented. And it's nuts that like I wasn't on the show for 10 years and he was the next person to make it to a final with Corey. It's just like nuts. But now you got Derek in the mix, you got Corey in the mix, so we're coming back. We got it. Yeah.
we could get into the actual like weeds as far as like the gameplay itself. But since we just touched upon it, I did want to kind of follow up because we were talking before about obviously how you and Shane and got acquainted through Corey, and you shared those texts a couple weeks ago of sort of like this is like pregame now. We're talking like this
Yeah.
before departure. There was almost like an unspoken truce of kind, and then obviously things went awry. I did want to, if you're comfortable sharing, because you mentioned about some of the personal stuff.
You
In
want the
regard,
tea? You want the tea? I'll give you the
listen,
tea.
to put it bluntly, yes, I
So I
do.
talked about it. I talked about it last night. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think since we didn't post it and we're going to post this, I think it's important to say. So I'm just going to stop tiptoeing around it and actually say it. Um, Here's the ideology of any tension between Shane and I. This is the core of it. And this is also going to extend into what we saw in episode 9 between Devon and I and sort of why there was a disconnect between her and I. So I'm going to give it to you. And I want to preface this with, and I said this last night on my live with Ashley, but I want to preface this with like, I don't expect everybody to understand this. I think there's some nuance to this that has to do with being a queer person, has to do with being someone who maybe is in a marginalized community in the world. I don't expect everyone to get it fully, but like, I promise you that like, this is the truth of what we're living. And it's hard, it's nuanced. So, Corey and Shane hooked up in the hotel when we got to Vietnam. Okay, they hooked up. It happened. He denied it the next day. I think he's denied it online since it happened. I don't need to have my truth validated by Corey. I don't need him to jump in. I think Corey is tired. I think the social media aspect of the show really wore him down, and I think he deserves a break. And so, like, I get that it's my word versus Shane's at this point, but like it happened. I'm just like not a liar. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely a game manipulator, but never have I ever been called a liar. In fact, I've been too truthful. Maybe I should lie a little bit more. But uh, that happened. We go on camera. This is like 2 weeks later. We're on camera now. We're in the house. There's a truth or dare game. Somebody dared somebody to kiss. I'm not really sure who it was. If it was like a self draw or if somebody dared him. Somebody dared Shane to kiss Corey. Shane goes, mounts him, gets on his lap, kisses Corey. It's like a whole thing. Everybody laughs, we clap. It's like funny. Nobody's thinking anything of it.
Hmm.
Within minutes of that interaction, Shane then goes around the house being like, like Corey was really aggressive. I can't believe he did this. Like, and there's just a point to which you have to take a step back and understand the context in which you're speaking. And Shane didn't do that. And I think playing the victim with this situation specifically and then using the term aggressive about a person of color in this context, it's just a really slippery slope. It's not a great look. And it doesn't feel good, and it really upset Corey, right? Like, because beyond even the vernacular of aggression used, beyond that word being used, I think Corey was like, what are you talking about? Like, how have I been, you just like, you got dared, you kissed me, and now you're like, it was just a really weird, hurtful thing. And Corey is a sensitive guy who like was so excited to have other gay men in the house with him and to have other queer people in the house. And it was just like, it hurt, right? He was very hurt, like to the point of being in tears.
Hmm.
Davon comes up to me after this happened. We're in the hallway. It's got to be on found footage somewhere. Cameras are everywhere. We're in the hallway, and she just says, I can't believe Shane said that. Right? Like, I can't believe this happened. And we talk about the implications of that. We speak about what that feels like for potentially Corey, what that feels like from the perspective of a queer man, what that feels like from the perspective of a person of color. And it really, like, Davon and I had already connected and like really, I thought at least, understood that we ride for the same things in life, like outside of the show. Like, I think she holds space and takes up space in such a beautiful way and is such a great representation for Black women. And I have nothing but respect for that. I have nothing but respect for the person that Davon is and who she represents for the show. I'm not going to speak ill will of her
Hmm.
ever. She comes to me, we talk about that. Such a profound conversation. I really appreciate that she asked for my input there too, because like she can speak from her perspective as a person of color. Maybe she can't speak from the perspective as a queer person. And then she goes to Corey and consoles him. And it was just a really beautiful moment because it was a way of turning something that could be a little bit nasty into something nice. But for me, I watched that interaction and I'm really put off by Shane's behavior. And what really turned it around for me is that after that night, every single conversation that Shane had about game was to get Corey out of the house. So it wasn't like a game thing. Corey and Big T weren't a threat to Shane's game. They weren't a threat to my game. They weren't like they shouldn't have been on anybody's radar, right? But it was a personal vendetta. He was embarrassed by his actions, clearly, and he made it
Hmm.
a personal vendetta to get Corey out of the house. Eventually, Corey leaves at the hands of Adam and Steve, right? They vote him in. I'm sure that Shane was in Adam and Steve's ear making that happen. 100% sure. Corey leaves. Immediately after Corey leaves, he starts coming for me. Did you see me or hear me ever talk about Shane on the show before that?
No.
Did you see us interact?
The
No.
first half of the season, Shane was basically like a non-entity.
Babe, please. It's so crazy when people are like, oh, Shane's carrying the season, Veronica's carrying the season. I'm like, Shane didn't wake up till episode 7 because of me. Veronica didn't wake up till episode 6 because of me. Davon didn't wake up till episode 9 because of me. Like, we know who's like I gotta get back surgery after this, okay? Because I've been carrying the whole fucking show. Regardless of that, like immediately when Corey goes home, Shane's number one thing is to get me out. Like what sense does this make? Like, why are you attacking folks? Like, you went for Corey because you were embarrassed with your behavior. I obviously noted that behavior, and you don't like that I noted that behavior and that I'm ignoring you and also buddying up with your friends. Like, it was all personally driven. Like, I offered no threat to Shane or Davon's game. Never spoke about him, never wanted him out. Nobody did. Everyone's like, oh, they played a great social game because they didn't get any votes. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Like, no one was like looking at them like they were a threat. Like, they were never going to go in because no one was threatened by them. We weren't talking about it, right? But if he made this whole thing about like getting me out. And so now on social media, I'm reacting to watching that. I'm reacting to how it made me feel in the house, which was incredibly uncomfortable because there were a whole host of other things that he did that were uncomfortable, including constantly commenting on my body and, as he admitted to, stealing my underwear, which is fucking weirdo behavior. Uh like there's a whole host of things that made me just so completely uncomfortable that I was like, I just can't fuck with this guy. Right.
Mhm.
And so now on social media, I'm reacting to it. I'm like laughing about it, I'm making jokes about it. And I don't know what show anybody's watching, but if you can't read that there's like a weird scent of obsession in the room, Calvin Klein obsession, like I don't know what to tell you. It was uncomfortable. And it made my relationship with Devon strained too, because like I said, I really like Devon. I
Mhm.
really, really, really liked her. Thought she was funny. I think she's thoughtful. Again, I have a lot of respect for who she is and what she represents. And so it strained that relationship too, which was such a bummer because I went in to the airport with Devon, and she talked about this on her YouTube channel. When she had to put down the phone with Cadence, the first thing I did was give her, I'm getting chills. The first thing I did was give her a hug because I was like, man, I cannot even imagine how hard that is. And I wanted her to know that, like, you need to talk about anything, I got you. And I wanted that relationship to carry forward the show, but the strain that Shane sort of injected on into our relationship, it sucked. And then cut to episode 9, you know, what we see last night, where she sort of creeps up behind me and sees me chatting with Adam. And there's the whole thing about, you know, I said girl, and then she said my name is Devon, and there was that exchange, and it was just like, first of all, you're never gonna get me to stop saying girl. Baby girl, diva, like faggot. Those are all, sorry, like blurt me out, whatever. These are words I say. I'm a gay guy. Like that's just like how I talk. And Devon and I had never had any interaction where that had ever been an issue before. And she had just stepped off the platform where Shane was cursing at her, and she let it go. And then she comes to me and I say that. And I was like, babe, I was just so disappointed because I was like, how are you allowing for your partner to speak to you like that? Which, like, also, I'm not even like dogging, I'm not even trying to dog Shane in that moment because I get it. In the heat of the moment, you say things, but don't allow for someone to speak to you that way. And then I'm like, girl, and you're like, what? Like, that can't be it. You know who I am. You know how much I care about the things that you care about. Like,
Mhm.
never ever would I be coming for you in any sort of way. So I was just disappointed by that interaction. And it was just hard because I recognized that the strain on mine and Day's relationship was because of her partner. And that sucked.
Do-
Does that make sense? Is that clear?
yeah, yeah, no,
I
that
know that
you,
that's like a lot of personal stuff,
yeah.
and it's kind of like big topics that are hard to talk about, but
Mhm.
it is real life, and it's, you know, it's hard. I'm not going to shut off who I am and what I believe in when I step into the challenge house, and nor would I expect anybody else to. And so, where I do want to try to keep the show and everything going on after as fun and light as possible and like game oriented, real life stuff does come up. And unfortunately, because of the way that it's played out, it's not really clear where like this feud started or like why I'm uncomfortable or any of that. And so, yeah, it just, yeah, I don't know. I know it's kind of an icky conversation, but
Yeah,
it's the
no.
truth.
I mean, you're filling in some of the gaps where there are seemingly, a lot of glaring ones. Um, I kind of wanted to follow up. So, Shane obviously was the one who blew up the whole spot of the they thing at that one deliberation. Did you feel like because of what was going on with the dynamic within the house, like that was the catalyst for him kind of exposing, you as like the they person within the social dynamics?
No, so I think he was so I think he just like had a vendetta against me because I didn't want anything to do with him. I think that made him mad. Like if you like again, up until episode 7 when all of a sudden he's a character on the show, I was never around him. Never. I didn't want anything to do with him. He made me physically uncomfortable. Like
Mm-hmm.
always like constantly commenting on my body, on my relationship, things like that. I just didn't it wasn't for me. So I had nothing to do with him, and I think that irked him big time.
Mm-hmm.
Um him, Amber, everybody calling me out. Look, that wasn't a surprise, but like, what am I like? Everyone knew what I was doing. I was incredibly vocal about what I was doing. I was like, I'm running the house. I think so. There's two things. I think he was irked by me ignoring him, and I think he was jealous that I had as much social capital and power in the game as I had. when they kind of came at me and were like, "Oh, you're they," and try to expose my whole game and stuff. I mean, I can't just sit there and I couldn't just sit again making a TV show. I couldn't just sit there and be like, "You caught me," like that's not fun. I was like, "Oh, I got to give it back. I got to like do," and I'm like, "I'm not this. I'm not that." Like I was just gonna puff my chest and give it a show, but like in my head, I knew exactly what was going on. I was just like, "Okay, we're making TV," you know. And like maybe somebody here, like baby girl Nicole, who like doesn't necessarily have the biggest thinker in the world, maybe she doesn't know I'm they. So like maybe we'll just like keep it moving. Um, but like yeah, I think there was just like an attempt to expose, but everyone kind of already knew. Like everyone knew that I was cooking and I was leveraging my relationship with Veronica. I was leveraged up until Devin left. I was leveraging that relationship. Now I've got Adam in my pocket. I'm going to leverage that relationship. Like, here's the thing. I was there to make, and I said this in an interview, I was there to make you feel close to me so that I could leverage that relationship the right way in the game. I know that sounds a little sociopathic, but I did walk away with many of these people being like who is coming for me from the cast online?
Just, I
Crickets.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just
Because
Amanda. Amanda's not even on
just
the.
Amanda who wasn't on the cast. Look, because I'm legitimately kind and friends with them. Like it wasn't about leveraging those relationships in a nasty way. It wasn't about undercutting them. It was just about making friendships to advance myself in the game.
Mhm.
And then when the game wraps and this is all said and done, anybody wants to come to Austin, you got a place to stay. Anybody wants to go, like anyone wants to grab a drink, let's grab a drink. And that's it. Like I just don't understand where we get lost in that piece, but maybe that's just me.
Well, it seemed like the direction the edit tried to take was to kind of make it look like the divide was Shane being jealous over your and Veronica's, I guess.
That was real. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was real. Yeah. And it was uncomfortable and not something I wanted to participate in. Cause like, again, I don't know Veronica for 20 years. I don't pretend to speak to that. So like, but I had a great time with her. We have a lot in common. We have a lot of the same social and political values. We have a lot of the same things that we just like in life. So we had a nice time. We would just lay in bed, bed rot, chit chat about nothing, gossip. It was fun. That was really it. And I thought, and that relationship became important to me. We also sat at very similar positions in the game, sort of on the bottom. So why wouldn't you align with someone like
Yeah.
that when you have
Mhm.
common goals? That was really it. That's as far as it goes. Like, do Veronica and I text every day now? No. But do we text? Are we friends? Yes. Like, I wasn't there to like infringe upon this relationship that had 20 years of existence, but it did feel like he felt very threatened by that.
Yeah, it's almost as if, and again, I don't want to like misspeak or anything, but it kind of, it almost felt in a way like with how it looked like I'm the gay best friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't even
I
think
get it.
about it.
It did feel that way. And I think it culminated in what we saw in episode 9, where I was like, babe, all she needs to do is elevate this foot and ice it a little bit. Like, that's all we got to do. And he's like, he had red light therapy going. He had a massage gun going. He's talking about white blood cell. I was like, what? Okay, you got it. Friend of the year award. Take whatever, elderberry essential oils you need to heal your girlfriend. I'm going to just take a step back. I can't engage in this anymore.
One of my favorite moments too, from when like because you obviously like were really active socially, like you were really working at this to try to make this. One of my favorite moments from earlier on in the season, this moment like really sended me. Like it's overlooked probably in like the lore of the season, but I just found it like really cheeky and funny. Is when Kellyanne's like stressing out about everything going on
Yeah.
with you and
Yeah.
Sylvia, and then you're sitting on like the canopy or whatever, like, oh, I really need you here. And then it cuts to the confessional of you just like, I could care less about any of these people.
That was
Like,
nasty work by the editors. It was really funny though. I mean, I could have been talking about anybody. I don't know if it was specifically about Kellyanne, but it was funny. I loved that too. That was nasty work. I look again. Kellyanne and I are friends. Like her sister is a realtor who comes to is gonna like work. Is gonna like help us sell our house. Like that's it. There's challenge life. There's real life. That's it. Like I
mm,
have no ill will towards Kellyanne. I don't think she has any ill will towards me. We've talked on the phone since quite a few times. Like it's just like game is game, life is life. And I think we have gotten lost in that with people doing season after season after season after season after season, because you can't compete with people that you have these like years long relationships with, or you have to separate that and be like, this is a game, this is a competition. And I feel like some of the cast just like can't do that.
Yeah, like you do a good job, I feel like, of differentiating like real life from the show. Like you're obviously like promoting the show and like live tweeting and everything like while it's on. Like I feel like that's what you should be doing, because why
I
else
also
are
feel
you
like it's
there?
part of the gig, right? Like we
Yeah,
should be promoting the show. Like, do I really want to clap back at Amanda? Mike, no, I don't. Really did not
that's.
want to do
I
that.
feel like
But
this is my fault actually because I put out a tweet like a week ago. Like this is uncanny that this happened. I put out a tweet like a week ago. It like blew up like, and I was like, oh, we need these two on a season together. I just randomly tweeted it out, and then a week
oh, okay,
later,
so it's your fault. Yeah, no.
yeah,
But like,
I
do I
guess-
really want to be doing that? Like, is that where really I have friends in town? Is that what I want to be spending my night doing? No, but like, it's part of the show. I don't
Mhm.
take it seriously. I don't really care like what people want to weigh in on. I don't really take it seriously, but I'm also not gonna let somebody dog me. So I gotta clap back a little bit. Yeah, I don't know.
I gotta bring this up actually because I don't know if you've ever seen or heard about this or not. It was like a couple years ago. This is like when Johnny Bananas was coming up on his 20th season. MTV Challenges, like actual YouTube, like put out like a video of like a 20 question thing of him just asking him like rapid fire questions about his challenge career. And one of the questions, it's literally, I'm pretty sure the thumbnail might actually be your face on it. By the way, it might still be up. They asked him like his least favorite partner that he's had throughout his challenge career, and he actually said it was you. Like, what is like? Do you feel like anything about that, or
No, I don't care. Johnny
no?
can enjoy his time at Mar-a-Lago. I don't mind. It's fine.
Because from my
Uh,
perspective, I mean, on that particular season that you two were
oh, he
paired
made
up,
it so much work. He was in the
right?
worst shape he'd ever been on a challenge. Please.
Yeah, like
Um,
yeah,
yeah. Unfortunately, Mike, I do have to go. So if you have any
yeah,
last minute
yeah,
questions,
yeah.
just because I have a work thing, but if you have any last
No,
minute questions, I'll answer before I hop.
no, we could close there. I mean, it was good. Thanks for hopping on here today. I'm glad you were able to come here and spill some tea. I hope this was a fun time.
No,
You're
I
able
really do
to
appreciate it. This is fun. It's always really fun to just like talk about the show. Like I said, I am so grateful for the folks who are watching. I'm so grateful for the show. The whole zeitgeist of it all, the whole world of it all. I am so proud to be a part of it. I'm proud of All Stars 5. And whereas like the challenge is not and will not ever be my whole life, I am so happy to have participated. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for participating in like the social media of it all and the show of it all. It's just like this is what makes it. So I really appreciate it.
all right. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Goodbye.